George Morel. So I can't wait for him to join. He's already here, so I'm going to get him into the chat shortly. First of all, I want to thank all of you guys who are joining the chat and who come back here all the time. And yeah, just join us, build this community, and share your thoughts. And what I want to do today as well, if you have any comments, any questions, just shoot them here below and just ask them, and we will talk about this. Okay, so if you have any questions to George Morel, then yeah, just ask. So I'm going to invite George, and can't wait for a fantastic 60 minutes with an absolute legend. George Morel.
Hello.
My friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
It's you've always been that sunny boy, you know? So every time I see you, every time I talk to you, I've always this big smile on your face, you know? So it's always a very positive vibe that you're bringing.
Hey, every day is a good day to be happy about.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's actually also something that we are talking about here a lot of mindset things. And we are going to talk about a lot of beautiful things, I guess. And well, my friend, we have not talked to each other for quite some time. And we haven't seen each other for a very long time. You know
what's good though, that even though we have not talked to each other for a long time, it always feels like we just catch up like this.
That's true.
You know, those friendships last a long time, that no matter how much time it goes between each other, but when you catch up, it just feels like fresh. It's just it feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, that's true, and that's what we have. You know, every time and the fun thing is that there's not a lot of people in the music business that you really connect to and keep connected for a long period of time. You know, so and that's what I really appreciate, that no matter what it is, we can always just write a message, jump on the phone, and it's always great to hear from each other, you know? So so what I would like to say is thank you, first of all, for sharing your time with us today and taking an hour to join us and give a little bit of insights into your career, into ups, downs, and experiences. And I think there's a lot to tell. You know what I mean?
And on my side, I say thank you very much for having me. But I
Well,
think it's going to take more than 1 hour, but we'll squeeze it into 1 hour.
Yeah, we'll try to, you know, sometimes you just get carried away and you could probably go on for 2 hours or something like this. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. George Morel, an absolute house music legend. I think I have like 10, 15 records downstairs in my collection from you, from the beginning of Strictly Rhythm, from Groove on your own label. And so before we dive into the deep things, the deep stuff, I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. So probably some of the people that are watching don't know too much about you and don't really know what you have actually done for the scene, because you have, next to people that you've released on Strictly Rhythm, on Groove On, and all that stuff, you have actually planned the way for house music that it is today, I have to say.
Thank you for saying that. I pretty much did what I love, and just one thing led to another. And in fact, I didn't even realize what I was doing when I was doing it, other than my heart was all into it, and it didn't matter what came in my way. Nothing stopped me. I wanted to kind of just do what I was loving, what I still love to do.
Yeah.
And then everything I kind of realized after the fact, like, oh wow, I did this, I did that, but it never hit me like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I just do that totally out of the love, out of the heart, and
Yeah.
everything just kind of fell into place.
And I think that's the most important thing. And you've been in this business for how long now? When did you start? Was it as I of course did a little bit of research, went on Wikipedia, and there's been some weird stuff on Wikipedia where I said, "What really?" And then,
Or like what?
well, it says that you've been vice president of Strictly Rhythm.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have been.
Yeah. Well, the Strictly era, that's a whole world on its own. How that started. And funny enough, I was working. My first record actually was a hit record. It was called Wiggle It, and I
1 second. I just wanted to say something really quick. Okay, one second. Hold on.
Right, so come on, and party hardy all night and wiggle it.
Just a little bit. I want to see you wiggle it. Just a little bit. That's it.
That's it.
Amazing. I just listened to it the other day when we got back in touch, you know? So that's crazy. You probably that thing is it's still playing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so go ahead. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, it's funny because Barbie just they were supposed to, well, they got to release it, but they didn't do the full promotion. They did a pig that shake his butt and it says wiggle it.
Yeah.
And for the Barbie collection, I think I have it over here somewhere. So it's great to see a toy with a music that I did that's like, wow, normally I go to the Chinese market and you see all these little toys, and Christmas time you see the moving Santa Claus. And it's always, oh, okay, Christmas is here. But when you see when you hear your own music with a toy, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's so that was really that hit record. Was it the first record that you have done?
Yes, it was actually no, sorry. I just remember before that I was well, a good friend with the passing of David Cole. And David used to, from CNC Music Factory. So David used to bring all these test ideas of CNC Music Factory to the club where I used to play at in New York. And yes, by the way, I've been in the business for 30 years, something like that. So yeah, that's that time frame that you asked before. And every time he plays something, I used to tell him, I'm like, hey, you're gonna be really big one day. This stuff is really good. He used to play amazing keyboard player. And I didn't know the difference between a black and a white key other than this way was high and this way was low.
Really?
Yeah. I had no idea. But I just everything that I guess being from a DJ background, it was all about the ear, what sounded good, what worked, what made the dance floor move. And then he was giving me, I used to ask him, how did you do this? How did you do that? And then prior to that, my knowledge came from Aldo Marine over from Cutting Records, which actually that's where Wiggle ended up coming out. He used to own a record store by my school. So my lunch money, I didn't eat lunch. I was skinny because all my lunch money went in records.
Yeah, of course.
And then he did a record. I'm like, hey, what did you do for drums? He goes, oh, I got this machine called Roland. I had no idea what Roland. And then there was no internet. So I'm like, okay, Roland. And so I started trying to find out what Roland was. Then I couldn't find it. And I'm like, I go back. I'm like, do you have a model number? It's like, yeah, TR-808. I'm like, oh, okay. So I couldn't find an 808 back then. And I found a 909. So I'm like, all right, well, this is Roland. This is 909. Well, let me grab this one. And then I started to do drums on the 909. And if you listen to the Wiggle It, that was like one of my first drum programming with the 909.
Can you imagine that you've been now it's just like going on the internet, super easy. I'm going to research for this 808, 606, 707, whatever, and you actually need to go into shops.
Listen, now, with all respect to everyone, it's super easy compared to back in the days. Because it's not only that you have to have the 909, but you have to make sure everything was in sync. And if you recorded vocals, you have to, the reel-to-reel tape had to have a sync track to be able to be to have the machines in the same time with the vocals, and it was just, it was a lot to take care of to make sure it sounded the way it did compared to how it is now. Now it's just click, clack, click, and you're done. Or cut and paste and you're done. And when you record it, like for example, when you do the backgrounds, now you can just paste, grab it, put it over here, grab it, put it over there. Back then you had to record it again and record it at this part and record it at this part and keep recording till it's all right.
Yeah. Well, that's a different time, you know. Back then, that's also there were not a lot of bedroom producers because it was simply too expensive.
Exactly.
You know. So where were we? We were at Wiggle It. You talked about CNC Music Factory, and by the way, for the people who don't know CNC Music Factory, can you give us shed a little light on that? What is CNC Music Factory? What have they done?
Everybody dance now.
Yeah. And what else? Deeper Love as well, right?
Oh, the Deeper Love, two black men do it properly. Luther Vandross, Grace Jones, Whitney Houston, I'm Every Woman, Mariah Carey, Emotions. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, Music Factory was literally a factory.
Yeah.
And it was a hit factory.
Yeah.
So the roster is huge, all the productions that happen. And again, it started also just doing music for the club, and it just went to the next level.
Yeah.
When the first time I ever played Everybody Dance Now was the demo, and we used to just test records on the dance floor, and according to how it went on the dance floor, that's what we were able to tweak and change and so on. So when David brought it over, I was like, wow, David, this is really good. But back then you don't realize where it's going to go to. It was just going to be a good record and work on the next record. But we never expected to get to where we were going to, or especially the CNC Music Factory. They made it huge with Robert Crevillis and David Cole. And their inspiration is what triggered me to keep going. So I was doing work for them behind the scene edits and so on. And then I got approached by Strictly Rhythm, and they asked me if I wanted to come on board because I did a record called Sir James Special.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm rushing just a little bit too fast. That's awesome. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. So that record did pretty good for them, and then they asked me if I wanted to come on board and push the label and make the label happen. So I was like, okay. There was a situation with CNC Music Factory that David was passing away, and I wasn't sure what to do next. So I started to do stuff with Strictly Rhythm, and Strictly Rhythm became what Strictly Rhythm is, or was. Let's say, that's better yet, what Strictly Rhythm was. Mm-hmm. And that's where the so many records that we released and I helped out and A&R and signed from there's so many to name. Yeah,
but the thing that I think is really interesting is how it actually happened to you, like from producing at home on your 909 and the other things that you had, so but how was the process? Because for a lot of people that are watching and a lot of people that get in touch with Refine Productions, most of them are facing frustration, difficulties, wanting to give up because they simply can't connect, although their productions are great, but they don't bridge the gap between the finished record and the label, you know what I mean? But how did you do it back then? How did that work? Like you said, they came to you.
Yeah, I mean, I had already made decent noise, especially after Wiggle It. Once.
Of course, yeah.
After Wiggle It, it was like a lot of doors were open. Everybody wanted me to do something for them.
Yeah.
But I was also, to me, it was kind of strange because I'm like, oh, this is easy. This is easy. So why not?
Yeah.
But not realizing that I got lucky. It's, I feel like I got lucky, or maybe I just really follow my dream, and that's why it seems easy. But there is hard times. I mean, there was times in the studios that I was there for 48 hours sleeping on the floor for 30, 40 minutes to get back up and keep doing whatever I was working on.
Yeah.
So it is not, it may seem easy sometimes. And the same like being a tour DJ, a lot of people don't realize that it's fun to travel and eat at the great restaurants and stay in the best hotels and get all the people to be like, hey, you're the best and all that great stuff. But it's hard work. It's hard work being on a plane for 10, 15 hours at a time, missing a flight because of flight connection, the mental stress, the body stress that it accumulates throughout the years. So it always looks easy from the outside.
It does, yeah. Because that's, but don't you think that a little bit the times have changed a little bit from just being fancy to being more open, that people show a little bit of more insights from themselves, like personality, in terms of that it's not always gold and sunshine.
Exactly.
You know? And I think that's really important, that people like awareness, you know, the awareness for the people that it's a job, but it's a hard job. It's a hard job. If you want to make it to the top, you have to put in like 115%.
Exactly. And dedication, that you have to put in so much dedication to it, and sacrifices. You have to do a lot of sacrifices at times to be able to get to where you want to get to. And even when you get to that point, it's how to maintain at that point. Because, you know, let's face it, nowadays there's so many great producers, so many great writers, so many great DJs, and every day that, you know, they pop new ones up like mushrooms. And how to stay at that level of like being true to yourself, because it's very easy for not to like, oh, let me just sample this guy's record and some old record and let me put my name on it just to put out a record. Yeah, it's a lot can do that, but it's, if you're going to take a sample, how to do it right, that it's going to sound unique and it's going to stand out different from the others, and it's not going to be so noticeable. So, you know, it all depends on what the person wants to do and how far they want to take it and how true they are to themselves.
That's worth gold, what you're saying. I think that's like wise, a very wise thing that you've just said, and that's what I always like people to tell them. Hey, write that down, keep that in mind, and don't forget it. Just like
exactly
log it in. You know, that's.
What may not work today. Like for example, I could be working on a track and be like, you know. But guess what? Don't erase it, because you never know when you're gonna listen back to that track and be like, oh, you know what? That doesn't sound so bad. That was actually good. Maybe that moment you got tired, you got hungry, I don't know, a phone call came in and they distracted you from the work. I mean, Let's Groove, for example, is a perfect example for that. I was not gonna release Let's Groove. Let's Groove was just an idea that I came out with on my way out the door for a meeting, and the whole Let's Groove just came out of my head. I put it down. I did a quick mix, and I'm rushed, looking at the time like, oh, I gotta go. And I didn't have a floppy disk to save Let's Groove, or back then there was not a hard drive that I could say let me save Let's Groove. So what I did is I recorded on the DAT, and I just put it aside. Somebody's calling me at the wrong time. Sorry. So I went ahead. I put it on a DAT. Saved it. When I was doing Morel's Groove Part 4, I'm like, oh, it's missing one more track. And instead of me doing another new track, I decided to take the Let's Groove that was on a DAT. That was just a rough idea, and I put it on the B-side, the second cut on the B-side. And look what Let's Groove turned out to be.
Yeah, and actually, that's such a hooky organ thing that you have in there, and like most of the tracks that you have done back then, has been mostly instrumental tracks as well, right?
Yes, instrumentals and vocals.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, Let's Groove was first an instrumental, right?
Correct.
And then you saw that it's taking off, and then. Who decided to do, or who recommended to do a vocal version of that?
Well, I got signed to EMI Positiva over in the UK,
Yeah.
and they wanted to put a vocal because let's be honest and let's face it, I love instrumentals, but it's also hard to find which instrumental, except for with having Shazam now, and sometimes you don't even know which one it is. But to say, oh, that record that goes tum tum, you know, there are millions of records that go tum tum. But if there's a vocal hook or something you can identify, that the record or that track, it's easier to find.
Yeah, that's true.
So the Let's Groove was, you know, okay, let's put a vocal that says Let's Groove on it to make it more identifiable. But regardless what, the instrumental is the one that works. I mean, that's
true. I love the vocal version as well, you know? So I think it was a great vocal. And it's just a shame that they don't do a lot of this stuff anymore today so much, you know? But what I also realized that back then when the tracks got released, like there have been more timeless tracks back then than that are there today. You know, because like all the music is all nearly the same and it's all forgotten within a couple of weeks. Everything is just like so fast paced.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's especially when I was picking up my dog earlier from dog care. I actually said, you know what? Let's listen to some Luther Vandross. You know, so I put on Luther Vandross, and I said, we should do something like that again. That something would be super unique.
Sorry, my phone rang, and I think I pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, well, I hear myself double.
All right, hold on.
It's live, so it doesn't matter.
Everything's good. Is that better?
Let me check. No, I can still hear myself. So it's probably from the laptop.
Hold on, let me turn the delay off. Yeah, maybe from the laptop.
Yeah, just turn the... Yeah, I hear myself triple now.
What should I...
The volume from your speakers.
Well, I got this one down on the phone. And now I'm trying to turn it off.
Okay. So guys, bear with us 1 second because we just need to figure... I think that's fine.
Yeah, I can run a whole recording studio, but I cannot run a phone and a laptop. That's kind of weird.
But George, it's yeah, I think it's where were we now? Yeah, I was talking about Luther Vandross.
Luther Vandross, yes.
Luther Vandross. I was listening to Luther Vandross like earlier in the car, and I was like, oh my God, why don't people make such good music anymore? You know, so timeless, you know, this kind of stuff. George Benson, Luther Vandross, Johnson Brothers, and all that kind of stuff, you know. I still feel that this kind of stuff that could work today if you put it into a modern sleeve.
Because, you know, the feeling that was around back in that era, back in that time, you made a record, and it was a long process. By the time that record got printed, got released, got promoted, and it kind of had a lifespan before the next hit will come, and they'll overlap. Now everyone is just pumping records out, and sometimes I feel like there's no feeling on the words. And maybe I'm an old school guy, but I still feel like the feeling needs to be there because that's something that you can never erase.
Yeah.
You can, you know, you got to grab that moment that I look at recording vocals like somebody acting on a film.
Yeah.
When you look at Al Pacino in Scarface, for example, you know, say hello to my little friend. That's something you never forget that line, right?
Yeah. And
then when you have, let's say, a Whitney Houston sing "I Will Always Love You," when she starts to sing that record from the beginning, it's like a performance that's recorded just like a movie scene is recorded. It's a stamp that you can never ever erase, but you got to add that feeling to it. I'm working with an artist right now from Germany, and she's just an amazing singer, and she doesn't even realize how great she writes. Yeah. And the reason why I love working with her because she puts so much feeling into it, and that alone makes her music.
Yeah. That's hard to find as well. Like we've talked about this, especially when it comes to vocals. If you have an amazing sounding voice, it doesn't mean that you have amazing lyrics to it. You know. So
Correct.
do you know what I mean? So it's so for example, you have these let's for example just say no, I don't want to say any names, but in the end you have like a big artist who's collaborating with that certain singer, and the result is amazing, and then you say, well, let's just get in touch with that singer because he wrote that, and he'll probably make a smash out of my track, and then the result is absolute rubbish, you know.
Yeah.
So, and can you tell me why is that?
Um, I'll tell you, because I had that situation happen with me. I worked in a song,
Yeah.
and I had a DJ do a remix for the song,
Yeah.
right? And ironically, the DJ decided to work on the singer behind my back for them
Yeah.
to do their own thing.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, go right ahead. Like, I found out about it, and I wasn't angry because I said, look, to get those vocals out of her is something that I know not anyone can do unless you really know how to record vocals.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was like, hey guys, take it home. I wish you all, both the best.
Yeah.
The one thing I knew is I wasn't going to work with a singer anymore because it wasn't right. And later on, nothing happened. He's like, how did you get the vocals out of her? I'm like, because I just did. How did your vocals do? Oh, she couldn't sing. I'm like, why? Oh, I don't know. Everything she sent me wasn't right. So yeah, of course, it's not about what she sends you. It's about sitting with the singer and coaching them how to hit the note, how to swing, how to do this, how to do that, and pull it out. And again, you're not only a producer, you're like a director at the same time when you're making, at least for me, when I'm making music.
Man, this is exactly what I wanted you to say. And I knew that you were going to say it this way because it's like you as a producer, you give guidance to the person you work with, So when there's a lot of amazing singers out there, but if you let them loose, they can go, especially when you're working with gospel singers, for example, they go like, and and they just like take it to the moon and back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and then you have to hold their horses a little bit, and say,
first you gotta let them go. It's like a wild horse. Let them sing, let them get tired.
Yeah.
Then control them.
Yeah, but that's actually right. So what I can recommend and that's what I'm also always saying to the people that I work with, if you have the chance to work with a singer, make sure that you are writing together, that you are in the session. And nowadays you do it via Zoom, for example, but make sure that you are in the session, you can guide them, you can give them a little bit of ideas what you're really after, because they can't look into your mind, So, and I mean, there's some it's rarely the way that you send something to a vocalist and it comes back exactly or even better than you planned. Live Your Life, for example, the track that I've done with Shawnee Taylor and Eric. So that was that came out that way because Dwayne Harden and Shawnee Taylor and Eric and Harry, they all have been in the studio together, So and only that way, and Eric, he's very, very good in bringing over the ideas, and he knows 100% what he wants. So, and if you have that feeling, and you can learn that actually also, you can learn guiding people, like with everything else, like in the music production process, how I teach it, you can teach it to everyone you're collaborating with. Everyone learns from each other.
Correct. And also the attitude. You got to have singers with good attitude because it's got to be fun when you're recording. It's got to be pleasant.
Yeah.
You know, the ego's got to be, anyone that has ego, they just got to leave that behind, because egos don't get you anywhere. Attitudes don't get you anywhere at the end of the day. And that moment that you're together writing, or even if the person is writing, if you see somebody's writing and it's going well, let them write. Let them write.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt their thoughts, because maybe at that point you're going to ruin whatever's coming out of that seat at that moment.
Yeah.
Don't say something just because you feel like you need to say something just to be part of it. Just say it after. But especially that it's always pleasant to have a good, nice environment during the recording session.
Yeah, that's really important. That's also something that I think is one of the most crucial things, is when you're working together with people, these people you have to connect with them. Because if you can work with people when you're not connected, but then it's going to be very draining and not a lot of fun. And then it's very exhausting. You probably had sessions where you just went out of the session. Okay, it went well, but I'm just done. I'm so tired, and I just, like, my ears are ringing. Yeah, exactly. So this happens as well. But I miss these kind of sessions, going into studios and writing together with the singer and doing that stuff together. So I really, really miss that. And also, like, collaborating. That's something, sitting in the studio together. That's something that is absolutely wonderful. So Kurt Maverick, right?
Yeah, of course, yes.
So, and we are still very, very good friends. We still do music together, and we see each other quite often. And he just lives like 20 minutes away. So, and he's one of the few people that I'm still in touch with. And it's always been love. You know what I mean? So, but this is a little bit like the thing that we have. For example, you don't see each other every day, but when you see each other, it's just like it's working.
Exactly. Now, Kurt also has a great humor. He's fun. He's every time. Same with Kurt. When I don't see him for a while, when I do see him, it's like, hey.
He turned gray.
Correct.
He's gray now. Gray hair, gray beard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then I haven't seen him in a while. Then.
Yeah. That's true. So, but it's good, So, let's get back to you. So where were we at this story with Strictly Rhythm? So you've been there for a couple of years, and then when did you come to the point where I said, okay, it's time to make my own label?
There was a lot of releases going on Strictly Rhythm, and at the same time, what made Strictly Rhythm started changing. There started being also inside the office, there was a lot of also sort of jealousy and ego getting involved among others.
Okay.
And I just felt like, you know what, let me just have my own outlet and develop my own thing. I didn't know what would that be, but I just felt like I needed to start venting out a little bit, because of the label. My idea on the label was like, hey, it's like a tree. You have different branches. So, why not? Why not try different things? Let's not just stay in one route and that's just it. And we're big enough that we are able to do different kind of music.
Yeah.
For example, I brought in my children from Italy to when it was, I just had on a test press and I said, hey, this is going to be really big. And the answer that I got was like, no, we don't license in, we only license out. And I was like, but man, this is a great record. Like, why not? Guess what? Look what my children did. And I didn't understand that. So when that happened, I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to start doing my own label. And also there was the situation of we were just releasing too many records.
Yeah, that's true. But how many records have they been releasing? Like every week, how many records?
It was about 2 to 3 records per week.
Can you imagine? And putting out a record back then means really putting out a record, a vinyl, 12-inch, pressing, covers, and all that. Thank God that Strictly at the beginning just did like black sleeve and just that label copy in the middle. right? So
Yeah,
and that.
but it goes back to what I was saying. It looks easy, but you still have to get those labels printed.
Oh
You got
yes.
to check the spelling, the graphics, make sure it was the same red color, make sure it was in double print because sometimes you get mistakes on the label. So it was still a process, and we were ahead, like I would say at least 3 months before each release. So imagine being 2 or 3 records out per week. Those 2 or 3 records are already ahead, 3 months behind.
Okay.
3 months before, and prior to having it ready 3 months before, we still had to have we had the production, and we had to the whole process of it had to be done several months before those 3 months.
Yeah.
So it was always like it was a timeline. It was an assembly line that just kept going, and something went wrong on that assembly line. It would just everything else would like dismantle.
Yeah, I see. You got a question here from
Yes.
from a viewer. From Rama Cyborg. Just ask him the most important question. When's the next Morris Grooves coming out?
Well, it was going to be before the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah, it was going to be before the pandemic. And then I decided to, well, this whole, as we all know, I think now after the pandemic, which is still going on, I'm going to say after because it's still happening. Now that things are kind of leveling in somewhat, or people are just accepting it and dealing with it, then I'm considering doing it. I think it's going to be more for next year, not this year, because summer's right around the corner. But you never know. I mean, maybe it could be August, could be July.
But there's something in the pipeline.
It's definitely in the pipeline.
Okay, so how
there's no need to stop the groove.
How many parts did you do of that? Because I know that you've been doing these Morel's grooves for a long period of time. So how many parts do you have now?
You know what? I forgot.
It's probably well. I just found
12.
Yeah, I found 11 this morning. So
you found 11.
11, yeah, and that's already, that must be 10 years, 15 years old or what.
So yes, I think the reason why maybe I'm saying 12 is because I was supposed to do 12 and then 12 never happened. Or I did 12 and I have to look back. But yeah, it will be I guess the next one will be 12. Thanks for letting me know.
Well, okay, that's great. Is it and these Morel's grooves, it's always an EP, right?
Correct.
Okay, it's always like minimum 2 tracks, different tracks.
2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 or 3 minimum.
How's your process nowadays when you're in the studio? Do you still, I mean, obviously you have a family, and so with children, time is running short, and you can't probably work full time on music when you have your free time to do so. I just remember when I talked to Sandy Rivera. So actually, his kids were running around when we were in the chat, and he's actually producing in the children's room. That's why he's studio.
I've used that to an advantage.
Yeah.
Because it made me focus more, and it made me able to block any noise that's going on around me.
Yeah.
And focus more. If I let it get in the way, then it will be interruption. But at the same time, I used to travel 47 weekends out of the year. That means every Thursday I would leave, I come back Sunday, 47 weekends. So there was only 4 weekends out of the year that I was off.
Yeah.
And I did that for 20 something, maybe 30 years of traveling.
Yeah.
And I missed a lot. Because when I got back Sunday, I was dead, or when I got back Monday, and then 2 or 3 days getting ready for the next trip on Thursday. By that time came by, like time just went by really fast. So I didn't have a lot of time to sometimes even finish productions because I had to be in the next plane. Which then I got into doing music on the laptop, and that's when I did Let's Take Drugs on a laptop, going from Florida to Ibiza, and that got released on Yoshitoshi. But to make a long story short, now I don't want to travel as much as I used to before. I want to spend more time at home, and I want to do more. I'm older now. I want to work out. I want to do more stuff that's more family oriented and so on.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it now, if I can make my two little boys dance and like it, that's for me, that's like making 10,000 people dance.
That's amazing.
So
yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm staying true to myself, because I never went into doing records saying, oh, I'm going to do a record that's going to make everybody jump and everybody scream and make 10,000 people dance. I did records just out of the love of making records.
Yeah.
So I tell you, I got two little guys that one of them tells me, Dad, that sucks.
Well, it comes from the bottom of his heart.
Exactly. And I test him, and I play them stuff from other DJs and other producers, and he's like, I like that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so he does have an ear. So he does have a good ear. And I make it more fun. And I show him what to press, what to do. And it becomes more of a nice family journey versus like, oh, let me just do this record to get it out there and see which DJ is going to play and see which station is going to grab it. Honestly, I would love for everyone to play it, but I know I cannot make everybody happy. I know that.
Yeah.
But if I can make one person happy, that person will make other people happy.
Yeah, that's right.
DJ happy, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's.
If I can sit in my living room, in my car, and listen to my final production and be happy with it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's something that also Layback Luke said, because that is something that no one can take away from you. This is just you and your production. That's you and your creation. That's how he said it. When I had Luke in the chat, and that's something that you need to hold on to. That is breathing life into what you do, and that is the stuff that will help you swim through that shithole we are in. So and I think that what you just said is really essential as well, that what you do in the studio, it needs to be the stuff that you love. Sometimes you can do stuff that you probably don't like so much, but I mean, most of the time it should be very fulfilling for yourself emotionally, because if you want to do it long term, you have to follow it, so because it's an inspirational, it's an inspirational job that we're doing. You know what I mean?
House is a feeling.
House is a feeling. That's exactly right. House is a feeling. And what I recommend the people that I work with, for example, we are doing this mentorship sessions, which is I take people by the hand on Zoom calls. I'm just teaching them actually the way how I work and how I do my thing, and that's what I teach the people. And because I have a lot of people that have problems finding their sound print. Yeah, so that's
problem finding their sound.
I call it sound print. So because there's so much going on in this world. You get like from the TV, from the radio, from Spotify, from YouTube, from everywhere where you are, from all the social networks. It's just you're getting so indirectly influenced by stuff, that you probably as a producer and as an artist, that it's really hard for you to actually follow what you love, because you get dragged out of focus. You know what I mean? So, and what I recommend those people, when they don't know exactly what they really love, is, you know what? We are doing a churning week for you. That means on 6 days a week, you are just going to create one vibe. It just needs to be a sketch, a vibe, just like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. It doesn't matter. Okay. But you're going into the studio and you just do what your heart says, and it doesn't matter if it's rock, if it's house, if it's trap, classic, or whatever. You just do it. Just let go of the pressure that you need to do club stuff. But do yourself a favor and try to do 6 vibes every day. when you finish that vibe, and it doesn't matter if it's like 15 minutes or 6 hours or 8 hours, you finish that vibe on that day, and then you're shutting down the studio and do something completely different. And you're doing that on 6 days a week. And I can promise you, on the 7th day, when you're listening to all your 6 vibes, some of them will be shit, of course, you know. So it's very rarely that everything is great, but sometimes it's most of the time it's definitely something in there that is worth working on more and producing out, you know.
But it's also great practice, regardless whether it's
100%.
good or bad. It's
Yeah.
great practice.
Oh
It's
yes,
like, it's, let's put it like a runner. You know, I hate running. I tell you, I hate running. But when I do, I do.
yeah,
You know, the first day I may run just half of street. 2 days later, I run the full street. 3 days later, I run around the block. You know, 4 days, maybe the fifth day later, I'm running much further. So the more you practice at anything, the better you become at it. So it doesn't really matter if it doesn't really matter how much time you do it. It's how consistent you do it, so you can get better at it.
true.
And then you start forgetting all those things that are taking the time and distraction away from you, and you focus better. Because by you creating every day, like you said, you learn to also stop getting distracted by the other BS that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, turn your phone off. Stop looking at
Like
stop looking at the social media stuff. Focus on what you're doing, and then put everything else aside. And I think right now we're so distracted, like you said, by so many things. I mean, it's just, you know, you get a message and you get this and you get this pop-up, and next thing you know, your mind just goes someplace else. Like me now, when I produce, I wait for, I kind of either in the daytime when I'm in a good mood, I do whatever, but my best ideas always come at nighttime, because guess what? Phone is off. I can just completely shut off and then focus.
Yeah, that's great advice. So it's also like, I just saw this message from Alex Chiari, who said the only way is hear what really you feel, emotions into studio time without social influences. And that's something
Correct.
that you nailed right there, both of you, you know. So
Very good, Alex.
yeah, very, very good. So what you need to do is you need to change your habits. And that's the really, really hard part, because you're used to getting up in the morning, grabbing the phone. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that most of the people do. But why don't you just think about it for a second and say, what difference does it make if I take the phone now? Is that going to change my life? Is that going to change the day? Am I not going to survive the day if I take that phone now? So what I do in the mornings is just like leave the phone away for at least an hour, you know? So just do my morning routine and stuff like that. And when I'm done with everything, then I can take the phone. But also when you're going into the studio, try to turn your phone off, or not even take the phone into the studio. Leave it outside.
It's not try, it's do it. It's not try, just do it.
But a lot of people try it and it doesn't work, you know, because there's...
I mean, look, lately I haven't been in social media because honestly, I've been doing so many other things that I've been trying to cut myself out of it for now, and to have music back out there again and so on. Then of course I would promote it, and I glance at nighttime. I take an hour or two and I kind of go through and see what other people are doing and get inspired and so on. But I caught myself, like I was every day, just, you know, it was like you said, I woke up and looked, and you know, I'm like, I'm in the bathroom and I'm looking, and I'm eating and I'm looking, and you know, like my family and I, right now we have dinner and there's no phones allowed.
Who says that? Your wife?
My wife, yeah. And my kids.
Yeah, well,
they're like, Dad, no phone. I'm like, I can't put the phone down.
That's important. And also there are people out there that post stuff every day, you know, consistently, feeds, stories on all socials. I mean, it's great that they can do that and that they have the energy to do all of that stuff. But honestly, for me, it's like, if I post something, I want to post something that means something to me, you know?
Correct.
Not just for the sake of showing the followers, hey boys, I'm still here, you know? So I want the people to see, if I post stuff, then it should be something that really touches me. And that's what I want to share, and that's
Well,
why.
thanks for posting me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mean a lot to me, George. You know that.
So do you.
No, I mean this. You know why this is important to me, because the stuff that we're doing with Music Monday, I think it's so valuable for us. It's a normal conversation. This is something that you and I talk about when we jump on the phone. But for a lot of people that have not been there and have not toured the globe, have not released amazing records, that is worth gold. You know, the conversations that we're having. And this is actually a behind the scenes look in how things work in the music industry, how you found your way through the ups and the downs. And this is just like helpful advice. And it's up to the people if they take that advice, but the people that are here in this chat, and I want to thank every one of you who's joining and keeping here consistently. This means the world to us. And like George said, if you make one person happy, I'm happy, you know? So then at least it seems like we're making some people happy who are here all the time. So, and that gives me a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
It
know,
multiplies.
yeah, it multiplies, exactly. And there are like people
And a good record, always remember that a good record will always stick its head out sooner or later.
yeah, that's
A
true.
good record, somehow, let's say you did a great record and you don't know you did, and nothing happens out of it. And you're like, oh, if a flop, nothing happens. But guess what? Somewhere in the world, could be Japan, that one DJ may pick up that record one day, put it and start playing it. And next thing you know, is you have a huge record in Japan, and then it travels to other countries.
Yep.
And doesn't necessarily mean that just because you put it out today, let's say it got released today, it's going to be the hit next week. Give it time. You know, it's like planting a tree. You cannot expect to plant a tree and right away you're going to start eating up the fruit. Sometimes you got to nurture it, put water on it little by little. Next thing you know, you're able to feed. That's the same with the records. Eventually, you start feeding every once a year.
Yeah. So what is your take on releasing music in terms of when you're a young artist and you know that you have something good in your hands, that you've created something that is really, really good, and they don't have any connections? What are your recommendations? How would you proceed?
First, never think it's really, really good, because it may be good for you because you listen to it 40,000 times and you got used to it. It became a tattoo in your brain.
Yeah.
Just be humble about it. Ask your friends. Just because your friends are saying, oh yeah, that's good, because maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Look at that as a project. You did that one as a project. If it sounds good to you, great. Keep it to yourself. Be humble about it. If you see you send it out to 10 labels and you got no response, then obviously there's something wrong. Doesn't mean that the record is bad. It could be that they just have not listened to it, or they just didn't listen to it at that point, and they didn't really hear the record the way as you heard it. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. Never ever give up on something you feel that you did that is good enough. And if you feel like doors are closing on you, then you know what? A/B that record with another record that's probably doing well, or you really like a lot, and hear what is the difference? What is yours doesn't have, or what does the other one, or what does your have that the other one doesn't, and kind of A/B it.
True.
Because at the end of it all, there's been records of mine that I thought they were great, and they were shit.
Well, I mean, it's a hit and miss sometimes. I mean, back then, it was easier because there haven't been so many. The scene wasn't so condensed. You know what I mean? Back then, not everybody was able to produce, and not everybody was able to DJ. You had to buy decks, mixer, computer, synthesizer, sampler, and all that kind of stuff, you know? So,
Correct.
and it was more unique, right? So, and especially, I find that it's more difficult nowadays to really scratch the surface for young artists than it was before, because I mean, it's easier to access, get on Spotify and all that kind of stuff, release yourself, self-release stuff. But so what I experienced, that a lot of people say, well, I send out my music and the people don't even give a shit. They don't give a response. They have listened to it, but don't even send a reply, which personally, I think that's super rude. And that is something that people need to think about. There's a person on the other end of the line who sent something, who did put a lot of work, his blood and time into everything. At least be polite and send no, thank you, not for us. At least that, you know?
I agree.
So that's something that I think is super important, because that you might be just the drip in the glass that made, how do you say, is there a saying in English like that, the last drip that makes it flood?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, and that
it makes the cup full and then overflows.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it can be that reaction that the people get, where they say, okay, this was my last thing, now I'm stopping. It makes no sense. You know?
No, don't ever give up. Never give up. In fact, and even if you know, like you said, scratching the surface now, it's hard, because there's so much out. There's so much product. So you have to be consistent. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep producing. You gotta keep, it's an assembly line. You gotta keep that assembly line going. But don't get sloppy and don't get too comfortable, because there's always going to be somebody else right behind you, and there's always going to be that one amazing record behind you that's going to like just wipe every other record out.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I hear producers that I'm just like, holy cow, like these guys are amazing.
The youngsters,
yeah,
incredible.
Incredible.
But they do stuff like every day, bam, 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 bam. You go like, dude, where does that inspiration come from?
Exactly.
Because we are just overthinking everything. When we are going into the studio, we have to be in the mood. We have to have the nice surrounding. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
So it's like we are more musicians kind of approach. Perfectionist, and just everything, the surrounding needs to be right, you know. But these guys, you can put them on the toilet with a laptop and headphones and then produce your hit, you know. Yeah. So and
well, I sold. Funny enough, I had a full-on recording studio with all this gear you cannot even imagine. And for example, like, I don't know if you guys know the LA2A. It's great for vocals. There's amazing compressor for vocals. I had an original LA2A. They go for like $14,000 now. Uri's 1176's compressors, and I had 5 Pultecs and all these, great gear. And these guys would come in with a demo, and it sounded amazing. I'm like, oh, how did you do that? And like, my laptop. I was like, on your laptop? So I thought, like, if I don't sell my equipment, I was going to be stuck with it, and it was going to become paperweight.
Yeah.
But guess what? That same equipment right now, it's priceless. You cannot even get it, because it does add warmth to it. During the transition of how, when people are starting to do stuff on laptop, yep. There was I call it the cold era. It was the sound changed, but at the same time, the quality also changed. And the combination of both now, the yep. actual equipment and the laptop, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, you can see that people are actually starting to hunt for more analog gear again. So I know a lot of people who are looking for certain things that we actually sold because it was just like too difficult now, and we switched to completely digital, and now everybody wants that old stuff back where we used to say, oh my God, we shouldn't have sold that. You know what I mean?
Myself in the ass.
I can agree. So
but there are some amazing plugins too.
Yeah, you're right.
If you know how to manipulate the plugins and know which plugins to use, and try,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of free stuff out there too. Be careful with the free stuff. Just remember something. If you're gonna make a soup and you put the right good ingredients, you're gonna have a good soup.
Yeah.
But if you put cheap stuff that you got for free for a soup, that soup is not gonna be the same as like the one you pay for.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay, that's right. So one last thing that I wanted to say is, when you were talking about keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, just like don't give up, don't give up. I think one thing that can really help you evolve your sound and climb the ladder is collaborate.
Yes,
You know, I think that is something really, really important.
it is. It is. It's always good to collaborate, and it's always good to knock on people's door. You know, even if they close the door or they don't answer the door on you, you know, just send the demos out to someone that, hey, I like your sound. I like your sound. I like your style. I think maybe listen to this idea. Offer them something, because if you just call someone out of nowhere and say, hey, let's collaborate, they're going to be like, well, why should I collaborate with you?
Yeah.
But if, let's say someone sends me something and say, hey, I like, you know, I did this, and I think if you work on it with me, it will be good. And if I feel strong enough, I feel like it's strong enough, I would say, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You know, I was the newcomer once, and I have no problem opening the door for a newcomer, because that newcomer, you never know where he's going to be a couple of years down the line. And then I may be knocking on his door asking him, hey, can I do something with you?
I think it's really important, and that's also what I'm doing a lot now is, you know, I have so much ideas lying around that I've never finished, because I've worked on it over and over again, and somehow you lost the vibe for it, right? So if you're working on things too much, it's just like the magic is gone for you. You know, someone else who listens to it might say, dude, that thing is a bomb. You know, you should just say, well, here are my ideas. Don't get too much attached to it, because you are a creative person. You are going to create a lot of more new music as well. But this way, for example, collaborating with people that are probably already at the stage where you want to get to, or have worked with the people where you want to get to, that's always a good idea. You know?
Exactly.
So
I have a friend of mine in New York City.
Yeah.
He's like my brother, like my best friend. His name is Julio. He's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
I cannot touch what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, when I hear his stuff, I'm like, dude, you just like on another plateau.
But that's what you know.
Yeah, and then he wants to like, how do you do it? And he stands back when I do my stuff, and he's looking at me like, you know, I'm in another world. But it's like, no, it's funny enough. We both complement each other.
That's it.
And we make each other stronger.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I also respect what he does, because it's like, you know what he does, I just cannot touch it. He's just, you know, it's just like the way it is. And that's why I say sometimes when you collaborate with someone, you also need to learn how to stand back. Because if you try to go in there as like, oh, I'm better, or let me add, just to try to prove a point that you don't really need to prove, and instead of just go with the flow, just have fun with it. You gotta have fun with it and go with the flow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just doesn't. It just becomes a nightmare. It just clashes. It just clashes all over the place.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, going back to my friend Julio, my brother, let's say, when I'm doing my stuff, he just goes to the other room.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I call him back. Julio, I'm ready. Oh, you ready? He comes back, and we knock out stuff like this. And when he's doing his stuff, I walk away. Julio, this is it. Da da da. Make it sound like this. I'm out of here.
Hasta luego.
And I come back and make coffee. I don't know, make sandwiches, whatever. And
that's great.
It works. You know, I'm not there trying to like say, hey, I know more, and it should be like this. All that ego stuff got to stay behind.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. And I think that's one of the really important things. Always look left and right and work together with people. And also that's exactly what Musti said last time. He said teamwork is one of the most essential things that brought him to the place where he is now. That's what made him create Peppermint Jam with his people. you know. So together,
Exactly. That was a great team.
dude, that level, I mean, you know Moose, and you know the Peppermint Jam crew and all these. I mean, that label was flying.
That label was hot.
Yeah, that was their like signature sound as well.
Exactly.
That typical signature sound. Mickey Lange, Boris Dlugosch, Musti, and Keith
No,
Schwartz.
and going back to saying that,
Yeah.
I don't know how Peppermint Jam became all together, but I'm sure if they probably would have sent their sound to other labels, maybe other labels would have not answered, or maybe other labels would have not picked it up.
That's it. That's why they created Peppermint Jam, because Moose and all these guys did house music in Germany, which was really tough because it was all about trance, techno, and Euro dance and all that kind of stuff. And nobody was interested in signing that. And so they said, you know what? Let's create our own record label. It's not as
See?
you
They
see.
don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up. That's how it is. And I think this is a good point to stop our conversation right here.
Okay.
We can go on for hours, but I think we should stop when it's still really, really good. I mean, it will still be good in 3 hours probably.
I'll be here any other Monday you need me, or you would like me to be.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I mean,
hope.
yeah, 100%. And it's been a breeze to talk to you, my friend, and it's been wonderful having you,
Thank you.
and opening up and telling a little bit about your experiences. And I hope everybody out there liked it as well. I think there's a lot of beautiful knowledge in there, and I'm going to definitely make sure that we get some nice little highlight videos for us.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Great talking to you.
So, thank you so much. He's so excited. You're so excited that the phone dropped. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for this.
Take care. Have a good week, everyone.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.